Right guys, in this video we are going to review the Nisi Natural Night Filter, which is this thing here. Now Nisi says that it blocks out light waves of common light pollution sources. So let's put that into perspective. What they mean is orange light, okay? So the general light pollution that you get is orange. So this is supposed to block out that light pollution. So when I first heard about this, that it blocks out light pollution or blocks out that orange light, instantly all I'm thinking is, well, I do that in Lightroom anyway. I can change the white balance, I can change the colors, I can do whatever I want in Lightroom. Why the hell would I need one of these? This is not cheap neither. It's over £100, plus you're gonna need a filter holder system to put it in. So it's not cheap at all. So let's put it to the test and let's see if it actually makes a lot of difference, okay? We have come to the beautiful city of London to do this test. I'm standing on the Millennium Bridge at the minute and I'm looking back towards Tower Bridge. I've taken this shot before, so it's going to be a really good test. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take 2 shots, obviously one with the filter, one without the filter, and then we're going to go back to the studio and have a real look and see the difference that this actually makes. Now the thing is, when I do night photography, I normally put it on auto white balance. And I do that because I can change it quite easily, like I said, back in Lightroom, and I find that auto white balance just gives you a good middle ground. But for a test like this, what we should really do is shoot in daylight balance so that we can see the results straight out of camera. I kind of think that it's not going to matter either way because obviously we can change it when we get back into Lightroom, but for this test I'm actually going to take 2 shots without the filter, one on auto white balance and one on daylight balance. Then I'm going to put the filter in and do exactly the same thing again. Take 2 shots with the filter, one on auto white balance and one on daylight balance. So let's take them shots. Okay, so this is the shot without the filter on auto white balance. Let's take this shot. Okay, there's that shot, and just so that you know, that was at 15 seconds, f5.6, ISO 100. Now I'm going to change the white balance to daylight and take the same shot again. Okay, same shot again, 15 seconds, f5.6, ISO 100, this time on daylight balance. So this will actually capture all of the lights as they are, their natural colours if you like. Okay, that's that shot. Now let's put the filter in and do the same thing again. Okay, so now we've got the Nisi Natural Night Filter in, and the first thing that you notice is that it's increased the exposure time, which you would expect obviously because we're putting something in front of the lens, and it's increased the exposure time to 25 seconds. So it was 15 seconds before and it's now increased it to 25 seconds. So for argument's sake, it's a stop darker when you put the filter in, okay? You have to increase your exposure time by just under a stop. So now let's do the same thing again. I'm going to take the first shot here on auto white balance with this filter in, and then I'll do another one on daylight balance. Okay, here we go. Okay, instantly I can see a difference, all right? We're not really going to know until we get back onto the studio and have a good look in Lightroom, but instantly I can see that it's a lot bluer, as you would expect, I suppose. But now I'm going to put it onto daylight balance and I'm literally going to take the exact same shot again. Okay, that's that shot on daylight balance, and again you can see a notable difference between the other daylight balance shot without the filter. But really we need to get back into the studio and we need to process these and look at them properly and really see what this filter does. So let's go back to the studio. So we're back in the studio now and we're going to have a really good look at the difference between using one of these natural night filters and not. But before I do that, let me take this opportunity to tell you about the courses that we run over at the schoolofphotography.com. If you want to learn night photography, you want to learn photography or Photoshop or Lightroom or anything photography related, come over and see us at the schoolofphotography.com, where we teach you properly. The courses are structured by a professional, fully qualified teachers, and they ensure that you learn photography properly, quickly, and that you retain the knowledge. Now, we teach tens of thousands of people photography all over the world, so don't take my word for it. Go and check out our reviews on Google, on Trustpilot, on Facebook, and see what other people are saying about the School of Photography, okay? Let's now go and have a look at these pictures. So here are the pictures here. And if you just look up the top here where I've named them, we'll try and explain how I've named them. So for instance, this one here is NF, meaning no filter, taken at daylight balanced. And then over here is one that's taken with a filter at daylight balanced as well. But before we get to that point, let's just recap. I took pictures on auto white balance, which is this one here, no filter auto white balance, and on white balance. However, for this test, I think that we should stick to the daylight balance setting because it keeps it consistent throughout the shoot. All right, so let's go to this picture here. And this picture here has been taken with no filter on the daylight white balance setting. And then you've got this picture here, which is the picture that's been taken using the natural night filter on daylight white balance setting as well. All right, now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to reference view for you. Now clearly you can see that the color is different. We knew that. It was quite obvious that that was going to happen. The natural night filter, like it says, it's cutting out the common wavelengths of light pollution. That's generally orange, yellow, that kind of color, all right? And that is clearly proven here, because here we've got all the oranges and over here we haven't. But let's zoom in and have a look and see the difference. So let's zoom into this area here on both pictures. There we go. Now the first thing that you notice straight out of camera, so there's been no processing done to these pictures, by the way, they are straight raw files straight out of camera. You notice that you've got more detail in the highlights. It's very slight, like really, really slight. You can see it in here. We can see a bit more of the brickwork, for instance, whereas over here, it is really blown out. So already that's a good sign. Again, it is really slight, but it's still a good sign. It's showing you that that filter is actually doing what it says. It's cutting out light pollution, but not cutting out the detail, and that's exactly what you want as a matter of fact. So that's quite good. So the main test for me here is, why would I bother to use this filter, which I've got to carry around with me? It's going to cost me a lot of money. Why would I bother using that rather than just changing the white balance back in Lightroom? This is where I'm trying to get to, and this here, what it's showing me right now, is obvious. I saw this coming, and most people who are into photography and know about photography, I'm not showing you anything that you should not know already, okay? You've put a blue filter in front of your lens. It has cut out, let's zoom out a bit. It's cut out all of the orange light. So the next thing to do then is to take the picture that hasn't got the filter in, take that picture, change the white balance so that you've cut out the orange light using white balance. So that is what I'm going to do now. Let's go. So let's just go back to loop view here, and let's go back to the no filter daylight setting one, which is this one here. And next to it here, I've created a virtual copy. Again, you'll be able to see that there. So that is the original picture, and this is a virtual copy of that picture. And as you can see over here, I've changed the temperature and the tint of the white balance just to see if I can get a similar effect. So now let's compare this shot, the one where I've adjusted the white balance with no filter, to the shot that was taken with the filter in, okay? So again, I am going to select that as my active photograph. Then I'm going to click on reference view over here, and I'm going to drag in as my reference picture the image that I took without the filter, but the one that I've changed the white balance on, which is obviously this one here. Now, firstly, you can see that there is a very similar, if you like, look to them. The yellow is removed from both pictures, so it is possible, as we know, to remove the yellow light pollution just using Lightroom techniques, using the white balance in Lightroom. It's very easy to do, as a matter of fact. But now let's zoom in and see what's happened. Okay, so again, I'm going to zoom into these same areas here, and then let's zoom in on that one again. So now I'm starting to see a bit more of a noticeable difference between the two. So this one, the one with the filtering taken at daylight balance, obviously that's not changed from what we looked at before. So we've still got that detail in the highlights over here. Whereas over here in the one that I've adjusted, the highlights have really blown out now, and we've lost, you know, any kind of detail in them highlights at all. Now, the reason for that is that we are taking out that light pollution unnaturally, if that makes sense. We're doing it in Lightroom, whereas when you're using the filter, it's taking out that light pollution naturally, if that makes sense. It's doing it in shot. So the least post-processing you do in things like white balance, highlight, shadows and whatever, the more detail that you're going to retain in your final picture. So the filter is obviously given us that. We can see here that there is more detail in the highlights than there is when you don't use a filter and you process it. So let's just zoom out again on these actually, and I'll go back to loop view. So again, here we go. We've got the straightforward out of camera shot with the Nisi Natural Night Filter added to it. Now, where it really matters most is obviously in the processing. So when you do night photography, you obviously go back and you process it, generally in Lightroom, in my case anyway, generally in Lightroom, sometimes a bit of Photoshop as well. So that's where it really matters. So for the next test, what I thought was I would process the picture without a filter that was taken on a daylight balanced, and the picture that was taken with a filter on daylight balance. I would process them, and I would process both of them normally as I would normally process night photography, and then look at the difference between the two. So let's go and have a look at that now. So again, let's click on this picture here. So this is a virtual copy of the picture taken with the filter. And then I'm going to click on reference view again. And this time I'm going to drag this picture in here. And that is a virtual copy of the picture that I took without the filter. And clearly, as you can see, they've both been processed now. Now on the face of it, looking at them like this, they look similar. You know, there's not really much difference at all. They've been processed in Lightroom. They're very vibrant. They look like, you know, I think they look like quite good night photography of London. But let's look right into the pictures again and see the difference. So we'll go into the same area again, actually. And here we go. Again, like I said to you before, there is a lot more detail in the picture that was taken with the filter than the picture that was taken without the filter. The highlights tend to burn out more if you're not using a filter. If you're looking at them full screen like this, let's just zoom back out again. Now let's face it, right? If you're on Instagram or if you're on Facebook, you're going to be looking at them like that. Nobody's going to tell any difference at all, as a matter of fact, I don't think. So it is really in them fine details that where this filter is helping. The other thing that I noticed with the filter once they were processed was that the one using the filter does give you slightly richer colors. Let's just zoom in and see. So I'm going to zoom into this part here, and I'll do the same over on this picture as well. And let's just move that up slightly so that they're roughly the same. Now, if you're wondering why the colour is different on the bridge between these posts and these posts, it's because that particular bridge that in London, it's got a light installation on it and it changes colour, right? So that's got actually nothing to do with the white balance or the filter. The actual bridge lights do change colour, so that's that part. But the rest of it, you will be able to see in this one here, which is the one with the filter. The colours are richer. And again, that is because the light pollution is being cut out before it comes into the camera. So you're getting a much cleaner light as it comes into your camera, whereas in the picture where you're not using the filter, you're adjusting them colours, and like I say, the more processing that you do to a picture, the more degrading you actually do to that picture. So that's why that is. It is only slight again though, but still it's there. So now we've had a good test between using the filter and not using the filter, and in the editing as well, because I think that's where it really matters. Let's give you my conclusion. Using the natural night filter is going to give you good results straight out of camera if you're on daylight balance setting. So if you like to shoot night photography on daylight balance, then obviously this is going to help. It's going to give you much more of a natural look to your images straight out of camera. You can, however, do what I do, which is shoot on auto white balance, which gives you a half decent look straight out of camera anyway, and then you can change it back in post. But that's going to be a personal choice, I think. Now, when it comes to detail in your shot, using the filter certainly gives you more detail in the highlights and it gives you richer colors. The reason, like I've said before in this video, is because it's cutting out that light pollution before it enters your camera, meaning that you don't have to take out that light pollution in post-processing. So that is a big plus. I will say, however, it's slight. From what I've seen here, it's not like a majorly big thing, it's a slight thing. However, saying that, if you want your work to be that one step better than the next photographer, all of them slight little differences, they do make a difference. Now, there are also a couple of things to consider here with this filter. First one is, it's £155, this filter, currently as we're making this video, and that is without the filter holder system. That is not cheap, so you've got to keep that in mind. The other thing is, you can't use a lens hood with this filter. Now, for night photography at wide angles, and I shoot night photography at ultra wide angles quite a lot, you're going to need a lens hood because it's so easy to get lens flare with night photography, especially if you're in a city like London, you've got street lights everywhere, you know, it's really, really easy to get lens flare at wide angles. Now, you cannot use a lens hood with this particular filter in the filter holder system, which is the one that I used. However, Nisi do screw-on versions. Now, I think that they're going to be a lot better in this situation. So you can get a screw-on version of this natural night filter, you know, for your lenses. And I think for me, that's what the ones I would be going for. So I suppose the bottom line is this, you know, will it make your photography better? I think that you can get away without using one if you haven't got the money and you are, you know, like an amateur, if you like. In that situation, you know, they are very expensive, and if you're just playing around, you're probably going to get away without buying one. If you're doing it on a more professional level and you are out there competing with the best night photographers going, then I think that this is going to give you an edge, particularly when it comes into post-processing. And for me, the bottom line is, will I be using one? And my answer is yes, I would probably use one if I had one of the circular ones. I wouldn't be using the slot-in one because I can't use a lens hood, and I know how easy it is to get lens flare. doing night photography at wide angles. So if I've got the screw-in versions, if Nisi's going to kindly send me the screw-in versions, I will certainly be using them in night photography from now on. Now, if you've got experience in using these natural night filters, please let me know in the comments below and let my audience know as well. It's really, really helpful because obviously I'm just one person. You guys are many people, and help people out. Put the comments in, tell us if it's helped your night photography out, and share your experiences. And please help us out by liking the video and subscribe to our channel for more of these videos. Hit the bell button so you get notified. You know all of the things. If you don't engage with this video, the algorithm don't push it to other people and no one gets to see the video, all right? So please, please help us out. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you want to learn photography properly, come over and see us at theschoolofphotography.com. It's increased it just so that you know. Boom. At least we know what time it is now.